Hey, this is David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. I have a favor to ask before we get to today's conversation. We're doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. And even if you took it last year, we'd be grateful if you took it again, because we can't use last year's data. Please go to citycast.fm/survey to take the survey. It's only 7 minutes long, we know, because we timed it. That's citycast.fm/survey. And when you take the survey, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast swag, that great CityCast swag. citycast.fm/survey.
Today on CityCast Nashville, did you know that Nashville Public Libraries offer more than just books? From puppet shows to finance workshops to tech classes and even free barbershops. Who knew? However, due to recent budget cuts, the library's Be Well program, which provides free wellness classes, has lost its funding for the rest of the fiscal year. Liz Weil, founder and executive director of Small World Yoga, has taught for years at a variety of library branches across Nashville as part of the Be Well initiative. She joins us today to explain why these classes are crucial for community health, who benefits from them, and why it's absolutely essential to find ways to keep these programs alive. It's Wednesday, January 29th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Liz, you teach yoga classes that serve thousands of Nashvillians across our city's 21-branch library system. Now you're facing a lack of funding. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so from our perspective at Small World Yoga, as a longtime partner of Nashville Public Libraries and their Be Well programming, we received word in September that our yoga classes were not going to be able to continue at the same capacity we had been offering, which was, I think at that time, probably 17 or 18 of the 21 total branches in Nashville. And that was due to a loss in budget compared to the previous fiscal year for NPL. And from our perspective and our looking, we tend to operate knowing that programming should be growing, but also consistently continuing. And so our assumption was when the NPL budget would have renewed in July, we were good to go and to continue all the way through their fiscal year. And, a few months later in September, we got word that something was going to need to change due to the limited budget, that budget would run out based on what we invoice every month. It would run out by the end of 2024.
And how long have you had a relationship with the Nashville Public Library?
Almost since the start of Small World Yoga. So NPL has been a wonderful partner, and we have offered programming at various branches since 2016.
All right. So I'd love to get an understanding of who this affects directly. So set the scene. Tell me about the people attending these classes and why it's essential that these types of community classes exist at no cost.
Yeah, I think, the Nashville Public Library system has done a tremendous job over the course of the last 5 to 10 years in reinventing how Nashvillians look at using their local library for not just access to books or access to the internet, but looking at how they can really look at someone and their whole health and things that they enjoy, both socially and physically, mentally, emotionally. And that is where that Be Well initiative came in. And when Small World Yoga was brought into it, it was to offer yoga and even meditation practices at a couple of the branches where we are seeing individuals come and frequent the library, I think walking in with the intention of doing something good for themselves. And I think what we're also seeing in these pockets of Nashville, so whether that's Bordeaux or Edmondson or Thompson Lane or Old Hickory, like we're truly all over the city, you're finding these little communities of individuals that are coming for social interaction and building this kind of this microcosm, these little neighborhoods and communities that they look forward to coming back every week for that just as much as I think the yoga or the meditation class itself. They're getting something that is certainly bigger than just the physical practice of yoga or meditation.
Can you share with us a story about someone who took your class and then made a lasting impression on you?
Gosh, I mean, the testimonials are frequent. And I think, some that have stood out over the years, one individual was walking, miles across town to find these yoga classes. This is this is probably 3 or 4 years ago, but fantastic older man who lived in one neighborhood where he was introduced to yoga at the library through this Be Well and Small World partnership, then learned that there was yoga happening on other days across town where he could walk over towards Buena Vista in Germantown, or he could find himself, elsewhere in the city. And we would see Brian in various locations because he loved the yoga so much. And that's, just a reason that we do what we do. Another, I would say, scenario that stands out to me is that over at the Edmondson Pike Library, there is a class that happens there on Friday mornings, and it has for years now. And I would say it typically is the widest age range that we see in populations. We see probably as young as 20-something years old. And one of our regulars was in her 90s, and sadly, she passed away about a year and a half ago. And one of the nicest thank you cards we've ever received in the mail was from her son and daughter-in-law, who wrote to say that she had passed and they just wanted us to know how much she enjoyed her weekly yoga class, that was something she looked forward to, and it kept her going. And I think that, when we think about active older adults and aging and that process of sometimes shutting down or becoming more isolated, having something like a local library that's easily accessible, that you can find community and you can find things that you enjoy, it literally adds years to your life and life to your years. And I think that will always stand out to me. And she was there every week for many years with us.
Yeah, my mom's 77 and she lives for her Zumba class at the Green Hills YMCA. She goes Mondays and Fridays, and she just loves going and has really made a friendship with a lot of the people who have been going year after year. So it really is a beautiful relationship. Off the top of your head, where else in Nashville can people go for wellness classes? Like I just said, the YMCA is obviously a very popular one across our city. And I do know that it has a sliding scale that can work with people's income. But when programs like this are taken away, there seems to be very few options for lower income families. Do you agree with that?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. That is part of my initiative and thinking and starting this organization, that yoga needed to go and meet communities of people and pockets of locations that were not having access like, I knew that I had in my own life. And even as a young adult, still knew there was a barrier to entry, and someone that was working in sports marketing fresh out of college. I think that there's, in a city like Nashville that is growing so much, and we're watching everything from housing prices go up to general cost of living and inflation and so many different aspects, the first thing that typically will go if someone is active at a gym or a yoga studio, if we have to start thinking twice about where our money is going, it can, I don't know. I think the market is not sustainable in a lot of ways. And so people are looking for accessible, affordable ways to stay healthy. And we're doing that at our donation-based studio at $10 a class. And we're doing that in other locations around the city, like Metro Parks, for $5 to drop in or pay what you can in other locations. So it's well below market value. But as you say, there aren't many what I would consider competitors to somewhere like a YMCA or what Small World Yoga is doing, and having that donation-based or sliding scale to really attract those that may need that kind of financial support with it.
How can Nashvillians who value wellness programs at the library get involved or support efforts to ensure their continuation?
I think in a few ways. I think most immediately, obviously funding is a big piece of it for really the next 5 months. We are hopeful that when Metro and NPL come together to look at their budget in the next few months and reset for July 1 forward, that there will be no question and there will be no concerns that we go forward and we have funding to continue doing what we're doing. I think the most immediate need on our end is to ensure that classes happen from February to the end of June, and ways that people can help us reach our financial goals and continue operating in the way that we want to operate would be donating. If donating isn't an option, reaching out to those that might have capacity to give or to donate or to even sponsor the library and or Small World Yoga in that way. And then sharing about what we're doing. I think there's so many Nashvillians that they really believe in what the library has to offer, whether or not they themselves are a yoga practitioner. I know that people see the value just in what you were saying about meeting communities and offering tools, whether that's learning how to cut hair or teaching people how to cook or anything that feels relevant. I think there was a bumper sticker years ago that said that, but like, a city with a great library is a great city. And I firmly believe that. We want our libraries to be active places for community and socialization and people coming together.
We at CityCast Nashville reached out to the Nashville Public Library to see if they had a comment on the story we were covering. We heard back and have an official statement to read to you now. This is from Andrea Fonta, library spokesperson. We deeply value our partnership with Small World Yoga and the vital role they play in our community. The response to SWY's efforts has been overwhelmingly positive. It's another affirmation of how much Nashville values Small World Yoga. NPL's dedication to providing free, accessible wellness programs remains unwavering as we continue to actively seek additional funding sources for these programs. All right, I am here with Liz Vile, Executive Director of Small World Yoga. So we're going to dive into what Small World Yoga is and what your mission is for your small business.
So Small World Yoga was founded with a mission to create accessibility to yoga and meditation practices. So simply put, I think on a bigger level, though, is we bring people together, we connect people, and we create community by increasing access to yoga. And we have done that since 2014 in the Nashville area. And it's an operation that has grown and now reaches over 4,000 people every month with the services we provide.
When did your passion for yoga begin?
I first was introduced to yoga as a college student. It was a little bit on a dare that I found myself in a first yoga class with a friend. Thought, I'll try it. I'll try anything once. And it was probably in the first 20 minutes of being in that practice that I thought, this is challenging me physically, mentally. It is something that I have never experienced before in any sport or any athletics. It is so unique. And the more I found myself on the mat, the more I just fell in love with what it was doing, not just physically for my body, stretching out, muscles and bones and everything that had been so overworked as a young high school and college athlete, but it was starting to change something that I couldn't describe at 20 years old, but it was that mental and emotional shift that was starting to happen. I was feeling less stressed. I was noticing I was sleeping better. I was just feeling balanced in ways that I couldn't even describe at that age. But that has certainly been what keeps me coming back to yoga and has grown to where it is now, wanting to share it with others.
And I read in 2013, you were moved by the idea that yoga can happen anywhere while you were in Kenya with the Africa Yoga Project. Can you share with us a memorable story from this trip and how then it influenced your vision for what you wanted to do in Nashville?
Yeah, I was there initially in 2013 on a group training. I was there training about 95 Kenyans, local Kenyans that were part of this organization who wanted to be certified yoga teachers. And my training group went in for a week and we were teaching skills. And I think what stands out to me the most about that experience was not just the training itself, but it was in the days right after the training when we were back in Nairobi and we were going and seeing where some of their active teachers were serving already. and the conditions where yoga was happening. Nairobi is home to some of the largest settlement housing, the largest slums in the world, where you have literally 1 million people living on dirt floors and, things that look kind of like ramshackle barns. And yoga was happening in the midst of these communities, and people were flocking to the yoga class. And I think what stood out to me coming home from that trip was these young individuals that were new teachers or had been teaching just for a few years were so motivated to share this practice that they were walking 2 to 3 hours from their home to reach these various communities on foot, and walking back 2 to 3 hours. And I just thought, we have access to so much in Nashville, Tennessee. We have the ability to drive to places. We have the ability to be to places across town in 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm seeing people that believe so much in the practice of yoga and its benefits, what it's doing physically, mentally, emotionally for people, that they're willing to sacrifice this much of their time to make it happen. And there's no reason we shouldn't be able to create something like this in Nashville.
So what type of classes do you teach, and then who are they designed for?
Yeah, so we have a wide variety. We have what I would consider something on one end of the spectrum that would be a very basic introductory yoga class, gentle, or like a basic hatha yoga class where we're moving very slowly, going through restorative poses. Oftentimes it's called restorative yoga. There are lots of different terms in the yoga community. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, what we're doing the bulk of here in this studio that I'm sitting in here is more of a vinyasa or a power flow class, where you see a lot of people looking to get that blend of physical fitness where they're moving, they're doing athletic type poses and holds, strength-based, cardio-based. And then those flows tend to eventually slow down and ultimately move you to a space where you can stretch and then you can rest for a few minutes. And I don't know if there's a thing as actually having a quiet mind, but you're moving towards it for the last few minutes to be in that final resting shape. We serve a lot of youth in the Nashville community. We're in about 40 different metro public schools or after school care programs. We've had partners like St. Luke's Community House, where the kids are as young as 2 or 3 years old learning yoga. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, at the libraries, you may find men and women in their early 90s that are still practicing yoga. And I love that. I say that yoga can be for anyone. There maybe is a yoga practice that is more well suited for certain physical aspects of it and physical limitations that people may have. But there's something out there for everyone, whether that is a gentle or restorative class, a seated meditation, or something that's going to keep you moving and breathing vigorously like a power flow, or a kids yoga class where they're jumping up and down half the time.
How does this type of practice make us better humans? That's a general question, but I used to hate yoga. I will just be completely honest, but I've completely fallen in love with it these last 2 years. I've started practicing at the YMCA, and it has just transformed the way I think personally. And so I just wonder if we all could start being more mindful, what our city how would we all benefit?
Yeah, Maria, I think you touched right on it. It's this, it's a selfish thing at first, right? Like a personal yoga practice is meant to work from the inside out, where I'm working my body, but at the same time, I am so focused on taking intentional breaths with my movement. And I think that is fairly unique to yoga compared to other types of athletics. Like, as humans, we breathe, and sometimes we don't have to think about the breathing that we're doing. And in a busy day-to-day life and a crazy world, we can get so wrapped up in thought and just not take the time to slow down and do something that feels nourishing, not just for our body, but really like for our soul and our mental and emotional well-being. And I think that is why the world needs yoga. It's why Nashville, Tennessee needs more yoga. When we start to take this time for ourselves, and after 45 or 60 minutes, I walk out the door feeling like there's just a little bit more intentionality behind how I'm operating, how I'm approaching people in conversations, how I am responding, how I'm listening to people. Like, that's the power of yoga, that I don't have, I walk out the door and there's some kind of stimulus and it's an immediate response. No, yoga is teaching me to take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out. Okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I don't want to send the angry email. Maybe I don't need to fire off the text immediately. Like, I can sit and I can breathe. And how do I really want to respond that's like this highest version of myself versus the most reactive version of myself?
I find that my driving has improved. I find that I use the horn less, and I always say, this rage will pass. And I think we all need it here in Nashville for sure. Well, our final question, what is next then for Small World Yoga? What can we expect this year and beyond?
Oh, great question. Small World Yoga is right in the midst of, on the board level, a strategic planning year. And so I'm excited to see where we're going as an organization and to be a part of that. I think what keeps coming up in the committee meetings we've had so far is that we're doing a lot of great things already. And I don't know that I see us going to any extremes. I want to see us doing things of quality, continuing operating at a high quality, having wonderful teachers, having accountable individuals, both in leadership and teaching team that's serving the community. And I think it's the recipe to have a growing and sustainable organization that we can keep serving the people we want to serve, and our classes will grow and we'll see people continuing to come back, whether that's in a library location, in the physical studio itself, or thinking about expansion of partnerships. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Small World to think about not just organizations that are mission aligned, but if we think about truly everyone needing yoga, having partnerships that are in the business community in Nashville and connecting those that are in the corporate world to mission-focused work that we're doing and bridging that gap.
Well, thank you, Liz. This really has been a special conversation. And listeners, will be putting the donation link in the description of this podcast so you can read up on that and donate if you're able, or share with people who may be able to donate. Because after this interview, I hope you agree, we need to have yoga at our libraries. Thank you. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!